The week after WrestleMania is always an exciting time. I know that's the case for me at least. It's when all the big announcements, returns, or debuts happen, and we're left with some unforgettable moments. I'll never forget the night after WrestleMania 27 when John Cena and The Rock announced their once-in-a-lifetime encounter 1 year in advance. How did that work out again? When it comes to debuts nowadays, you can always expect that the hottest act in NXT will finally get their chance to show the fans what they can do on the big stage. Just this year, we saw the debuts of The Revival, Ty Dillinger, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, these guys were all beloved in NXT by many, including myself. But right now, they don't seem to be getting the same affection that they did before making the jump to RAW and SmackDown. I tried to think about why this might be the case as I noticed this was a trend that has occurred with previous NXT call-ups. Remember when everyone was excited for Sami Zayn to debut? Or when people said American Alpha was going to revitalize a tag team division? But then I thought to myself, who are these wrestlers to the majority of the fan base? When I started to watch these debuting wrestlers from the perspective of someone who isn't subscribed to the WWE Network and therefore doesn't watch NXT on a weekly basis, I started to ask many questions. Who is Ty Dillinger? Why is he called the Perfect 10? What has he accomplished that makes him worthy to face AJ Styles for the United States Championship? Oh wait, you didn't watch NXT? Then you're screwed because WWE isn't going to waste time answering any of these questions for you. The more I started to watch with this perspective, the more questions I had, and it didn't help that I cancelled my network subscription earlier this year. This leads me to the issue I wanted to bring up. Does WWE assume that everyone watches NXT, and is that a bad thing? Looking at Shinsuke's debut in NXT, they did a wonderful job of introducing him to anyone who is unfamiliar with his work. The commentary told us about his amazing accomplishments in Japan, and they had his first match be a prove-yourself sort of storyline with Sami Zayn. This made sense because he was an unproven talent to many American viewers. Sure, you told us how great he is, but we need to see how great he is. Then at NXT TakeOver Dallas, we see him come out to some amazing music and a fantastic entrance that alone showed just how charismatic he was. If they just gave us that entrance and canceled the match, I would have been fine with it because it was just that incredible. But of course, that wouldn't be sufficient for a wrestling show. So Zayn and Nakamura went and gave us one of the best matches of the year, possibly of the past 10 years. With that one match, WWE did an excellent job of introducing the Japanese sensation to the masses. Comparing that to how he debuted on SmackDown is kind of tricky. When he came to the main roster, there was this level of expectation with Nakamura. Rather than letting him grow on the viewers, they were hoping his popularity in NXT would hold him over, and it worked at first. People were very receptive towards him and everyone was singing along with his music, but what was most important was what impact he'd make in the ring. The result? Meh. His debut came at the Backlash pay-per-view against Dolph Ziggler, and the match was fine, but had a little too much of Ziggler dominating the match. Overall, not a good first impression for the king of strong style. As time went on, I kept watching Nakamura's career as he competed in meaningless tag matches and wondered, what is so special about this guy? He hasn't done anything to prove to me that he's a top star by a long shot, and that's a failure on WWE's part. And yet they tried to act like he was still a huge star, even going as far as giving him a match against John Cena, declaring it as a dream match. Don't get me wrong, their match was great, but that doesn't change the fact that the guy had zero build-up to this point. Now going back to my earlier question of if WWE assuming we watch NXT is a bad thing, I think after looking at the past few months of SmackDown, I can give a resounding yes. WWE wants to use someone's success in NXT as an excuse to not build them up once they get on the main roster, and that presents a few problems. For one, those who didn't watch NXT, and looking at the WWE Network subscriptions, that's likely a large portion of the audience, won't get what makes guys like Ty Dillinger or Bobby Roode so great. Secondly, even if you did watch these talents work their way up from NXT, then you'll have to watch them be misused on the main roster and just blend in with the rest of the roster. It honestly really bothered me when they had Nakamura beat Cena, because it felt like that was WWE basically approving of Shinsuke as a main event talent and believing their job of building him up was done. And frankly, in my mindset of a non-NXT viewer, I'm still waiting for him to make an impression on me.